Welcome to Beyond the Flight Deck podcast with United Airlines pilot and investment advisor, Alan Bewley, who will take you behind the scenes with airline pilot entrepreneurs, academics, and other professionals. And now, your host, Alan Bewley.
Welcome to episode 1 of Beyond the Flight Deck. My guest today is founder and CEO of ETT Aviation, Tom LaJoie. United pilots know Tom as the creator of Crew Companion, formerly eTripTrader, which plays a pivotal role in increasing the quality of life for many of us. Our discussion takes us through the set of events that leads Tom to creating eTripTrader. Those events include being furloughed with 5 kids at home, living on just a few $1,000s per month generated by his new business. We talked about the challenges he faced, including dealing with United, marketing, hiring employees, looking for investment capital, relying heavily on his lead programmer, his 16-year-old son, all while trying to provide exceptional customer support. Through our conversation, Tom offers some great resources for entrepreneurs trying to get their business off the ground. Today, Tom has a few dozen employees and provides comprehensive airline operational software to over 20 different airlines. Welcome Beyond the Flight Deck.
All right, so we're here with podcast number 1 of the Beyond the Flight Deck podcast with none other than Tom LaJoie. He's the founder and president CEO of ETT Aviation. Tom, thanks for joining us in podcast number 1.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Alan.
Yeah, man, it's great to see you. I hadn't seen you in a long time. Hadn't spoken to you in a while. So you went to Cal State in Sacramento. I see you studied mathematics there. Was there any what with a mathematics degree, what of what you studied in college helped you get this company started or run this company started, or is it completely unrelated?
It's mostly unrelated. It was always referred to Sac State as Slack State. Wasn't the toughest school in the country, but anyway, with the math degree, I was able to get an Air Force ROTC scholarship.
Good.
So basically, I had enlisted in the Air Force, and while I was in, I picked up enough school to get 2 years of school in about a year and a half that I was enlisted. And then I got this scholarship to go to Sac State, get a degree in math, and then come back in as on a pilot scholarship. And so that's how I ended up becoming a pilot in the Air Force. And when I was, so I flew. I got FAPed. I was a first assignment instructor pilot. Got a T-38 and flew that for several years, and then I flew the C-12, which is a King Air 200.
Yep, I flew a lot of those myself.
Did you? Oh,
yeah, civilian world.
Yeah, fun airplane. Wasn't quite as much fun as yanking and banking in the T-38, but still, it was a good mission. And while I was there, I got to lead the whole unit. So and it was an ACE unit. It was for Accelerated Co-Pilot Enrichment.
Okay.
But anyway, so I had basically 5 airplanes. I had 5 instructors, 13 maintenance guys, and then about 50 bomber and tanker co-pilots that were all assigned to me. And it was like a little mini airline.
Yeah.
So, I ended up, from that experience, I learned how to run an airline. And then I also had a non-flying job after that, though, where I was in charge of a group of computer programmers. So I sort of learned how to be the go-between, explaining the requirements that the end user needed to the developer. And, it's an important role that somebody's got to fill. And so I learned that. And again, with the rest of my background, when I went to United, I recognized the need for an improvement to the trip trade system.
Sure. So what do you think led to that job opening for you? You getting that job opening, that section chief job opening over the software engineering folks in the Air Force? Was there something in your educational background? Was there something in your military background, or was it right place, right time? Yeah, what got you there, you think?
Oh hell, I could hardly even spell computer at the time, but I kind of lied my way into the position. He told him that, oh yeah, I know everything about that, and
Yeah.
but because I had gone down to Montgomery, Alabama on a non-fly-in job for OTS, Officer
Hmm.
Training School,
Yeah.
and I did not enjoy teaching guys how to fold their underwear in 6-inch squares. So
Well,
this
I'm from
opportunity.
Birmingham originally, so
Oh,
I'm
really?
assuming you loved Montgomery, as we call it, because there's nothing
Fun.
fun about Montgomery. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So nothing in particular got you into that job as far as your background, but once you got there, how big was that learning curve for you to understand the language that those software engineers were talking? Because that was completely out of your wheelhouse at the time.
Well, it wasn't completely, because I was a math major at Slack State, but also I was taking a lot of computer programming classes.
Okay.
So, I had a little bit of that. I like doing it. I like programming. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So actually, I wasn't quite as ignorant about it as I was
As you're leading on.
trying
Yeah. I
to.
mean, and this was, this is back in the mid 90s. So it's today, every other kid coming out of school's got some sort of
Right.
software engineering degree. So back then you were a bit of a commodity since you had even just some classes.
Yeah, back then it wasn't it wasn't as prevalent back then.
You got out of the military in 98 and then hired in 99.
That's right.
An unlucky time to get hired in the airline industry, as we know in retrospect.
Yeah.
You come on the property and we're using this awesome system called Unimatic that my dad hired in 65 at United used, I think, in 1965 as a new hire, right? You've got some software engineering background, you've got some management background in addition to being an aircraft commander. And you see what we all saw, this ancient computer system with, I don't know, not a horrible scheduling system for trip trading, as far as what we're allowed to do. I mean, I remember as a 27 engineer, I would do a Grand Rapids turn out of Chicago. I'd do a trip trade in Chicago. I'd do another one at the terminal in Grand Rapids and another one back in Chicago, just because, but it was manual, jump on the computer, got to
Right.
do it. From our end, the users of your system, what we saw come along within a couple of years was this awesome system for our legacy Cal folks that may be watching this. Our trip trade window domestically was 28 hours to 24 hours out, was aggressive pickup for reserves. So we would set our computer to turn on at 3:00 in the morning to pick up a trip for 7 a.m. the following day. We'd go to sleep and wake up. Your system would turn on in the middle of the night, hit the enter button 1,000 times a second or whatever, and we'd wake up, either we've won the trip or we haven't, for a reserve, for example.
Right.
So, between you getting hired and us seeing that, a lot happened. So there were one or two other pieces of software out there, I think, that tried to interface with Unimatic. I can't remember if it was trip trade related or schedule
No,
bidding related
it
or
was
something.
bidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. You get on the property and you start working with this archaic system. What kind of set the wheels in motion for you? Was it furlough, or was it something you were working on before?
What? No, it was really just as you said, that the process was very manual, and I I just got so frustrated with it after a while, and I was kind of like you, maybe doing a lot of trip trades because I was pretty junior. So, but computer savvy enough to figure out that, hey, there's a way around this problem of crappy schedules. If you can trip trade your way up, you can start off with a really crappy schedule, and then just make incremental improvements in your schedule to the point where by the time you actually fly it, it's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got fairly good at doing that, but still, it was such a long and painful process each time to generate a trip trade that I think it was after 9/11 that it hit on me, like, my opportunity to fly is going to be nil by the time I get out, because I was about I think 1,200 numbers into the furlough group before they got to me. And so of course there's no pilot jobs on the street then.
Right.
And so when I got this idea, like, you know what, I'm gonna create a better trip trade system and do notifications and when new trips open and that kind of thing. I had reached out to my son at the time. He was 15 when we first started this, and I told him this problem that United has a good system for allowing us to trade trips, but it's not easy to use. So here's what I think we could do to make it much easier to grab trips, and you want to help. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we started programming, and that was in March of 02. And so of course 9/11 was in September of the previous year. So not too long after that did we get started, but it took about a year of coding before we released our first beta product in March of 03, and then I got furloughed in May of 03, and pretty much that was the day I got furloughed was the day we went live with eTripTrader, which was the original name. The ETT of ETT Aviation is the derivative of eTripTrader, so we have maintained that.
So what had you done at that point as from an organization standpoint? You had formed a single member LLC or an S Corp. What had you done?
We created a dual LLC structure. One LLC that contained the intellectual property, the software, and then we created another one for a marketing company that would that had the exclusive rights to market the product. And the reason we set it up like that was so that we had some protection. So if somebody were to sue us for, I don't know, because they didn't get the trip they wanted or something, for whatever reason, if somebody were to sue us, the worst that could happen is we could only lose half of what we had created.
Right. So the marketing side is what they would end up suing. I take it, not not the intellectual property side.
So it would be difficult to actually get at the software itself.
Was this on the advice of an attorney? Was this something you just picked? Okay, so you engaged?
No, I had no idea about that kind of thing. Before eTripTrader, I wasn't an entrepreneur or anything. Like I said, military background, and did not have parents that were entrepreneurs or anything like that. So
sure,
this was all new to me. So I relied on the advice of counsel to create that structure. Now we're a C corporation. We transitioned to a C corp in 2007. Again, at the advice of some financial guys at the time, because we were trying to attract some money, and investors prefer a C corp structure to the LLC structure.
All right, so you get the advice to set up the two different companies, and that makes a whole lot of sense from a IP protection standpoint, just a general liability standpoint. The coding that was going on, the program that was going on initially, just you and your son banging this thing out. So there wasn't other than maybe some servers and some hardware, not a lot of upfront expense other than human capital. I mean, was it fairly inexpensive to get this thing going because it's so driven by people, by manpower?
Yeah, for a startup business, I think it was one of the least expensive in startup costs. There was one expense that we had to pay up front, and that was for this software that would connect to Unimatic. United required us to purchase this piece from I don't remember the name of the company, but anyway, they provided this gateway from your computer to Unimatic at United. And so we would have to bundle that piece into our software when we sold it.
Yeah. And again, for those that weren't on this before, eTripTrader was initially a Windows-based desktop software. right? It wasn't this
Exactly.
awesome online cloud thing that we deal with now on a day-to-day basis, whether it's Crew Companion or something else. So let's talk about the United piece for a second. How difficult was that to get in the door and let a United allow you to have that interface?
It was tough. It was very tough. They don't, they've never been particularly friendly with third-party vendors. It's something that they've, allowed over the years until very recently. In fact, I think it's ending tomorrow, right? They're kind of, shutting off third-party vendor access, and we lived with that fear for literally decades, that that we would be shut down at some point.
How tough was it for you and your son? What was the learning curve like? The programming for this thing that you created from nothing. Did you have an idea? Was there some other platform like it that you were trying to, or other platforms you were looking at, or was this just totally from scratch? Okay, this is what this thing I think needs to look like. And how many iterations were there before, okay, this thing can go at least into beta?
That's a good question, Alan. There was another product out there for trip trading that the Delta pilots were using, but we didn't know anything about it at the time. So it was truly just built out of ignorance, knowing that there was a need to create something better than what we have now. Quite frankly, the bar was pretty low with Unimatic. It's it was a difficult system to use. So if you could put any kind of front end on it, any kind of modern front end
Sure.
that would help you visualize the data and manipulate it, then it's going to be a hit.
Sure.
And that's what we found. We started off when we did go live in May of 2003. We were making all of $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that's what we were feeding our family of 7 off. So it was some really tough times. So,
Yeah.
But the next year, I think we made like 50,000, and so it just steadily grew over time to the point where we had about 2,000 pilots using the software in 2015 when the Union and United came to an agreement to bring Crew Companion on the property for all the pilots.
Right. Sure. So going back to your furloughed, you've come up with this idea, you get some legal advice, maybe some tax advice. Luckily, not a big, huge investment up front, other than your time and your son's time. What were the, I'm going to say, non-programming challenges? What were one or two hurdles, roadblocks, challenges that you face just as someone starting a small business? Now, again, you're furloughed. You're not having to spend time flying. You're furloughed, which is scary enough. But what maybe were some just business development challenges, whether it was marketing, whether it was, not exactly programming, because a lot of people watching this may not have anything to do with programming, but just starting a small business from the ground up and trying to make some direction, with the company. Looking back, maybe what are one or two challenges? And it can be in the first 5, 6, 7 years even.
Well, that's a really good question. I think that the biggest challenge that I faced was that I didn't have any kind of experience running a business. I didn't have a business degree, and maybe I wasn't even smart enough to seek out those who had that information, at least not for a few years. So I really struggled initially with learning everything just through the School of Hard Knocks, and so how to set up QuickBooks, and how to pay employees, how to hire. All of the challenges that an entrepreneur faces, I faced without basically any adult supervision.
Yeah.
And my son Chris I love him. He's still, a critical part of the success of our company. And, he's our CTO, CIO. He has no interest in running the business side.
Yeah.
He was just, heads down doing the coding, which was
Great.
fine.
Sure.
But that left the running of the business to me. And I did not seek out the tools or the mentorship that I should have to help me in those early years. Now later I did. I joined an entrepreneurial organization that was sponsored out of Boise State, called the BSU Tech Center, and that helped a lot, because then I had a business coach that was sort of telling me all the things that I had done wrong, and
Right.
pointing me in the right direction and helping me get in front of investors and that kind of thing. And but there are small business development centers all across the country that that are a great starting point for an entrepreneur, or maybe a United pilot that wants to have a side hustle job. I would say go out and find, talk to somebody at the SBDC, because they can help you create a business plan, think through all of the, your idea and the potential challenges, the industry, the market. They can help you with those kind of things that, like I said, I didn't have help with for several years.
Yeah, no, a lot of us, I was the same way with United Wealth Management. I mean, I left a bank that I worked for a few years, had some baseline training on helping people invest their money, and then I had to parlay it into starting a business. Now, United Wealth Management was my fifth business. The others were, I had small businesses, but it was just my labor trying to either sell airplanes. I set up a fractional company. There's a few things that I did. I never had to deal with employees. I never had to deal with, I did sales, but not raising capital for the business. So yeah, that's, that I think, I think most of us that are going to try something from a side hustle, if you will, standpoint, finding that small business development center, I think is a great idea to help them put something on paper, some guidance to, how do I hire somebody? How do I do payroll? What's the great thing too is when you started that company and when I started mine, a lot of the tools that are available to us today online as a small business owner, whether it's payroll or marketing, you name it, just wasn't around.
That's probably true.
So like you, I got a mentor. Actually, the CEO at the bank I used to work for became a mentor of mine after I left, and we we get together about once a year, just kind of a keep me in check kind of thing. So those are important, very important.
And then like depending on if you are maybe beyond that initial startup stage, there are other organizations that are fantastic at providing resources and connections to help you continue to grow. For example, there's an organization called YPO. What's that? Young something entrepreneurs. I'm in an organization called EO, Entrepreneur Organization. It's a worldwide organization of 18,000 people. That it's for business owners where your business is doing at least $1 million a year in revenue. They help me with these various challenges that I face as the CEO or owner, and so there's organizations like that. There's also some that fill in the gap, from like 250,000 to $1 million. So there's resources out there to help you grow your business all the way through the various steps. And there's also great books like Scaling Up from Vern Harnish is just a fantastic book that steps you through the different elements that you need to put in place to be able to effectively grow your business. EOS is another great system for entrepreneurs to employ to grow their business.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll pull up these organizations and we'll link them on the podcast so people can take a look at those. That's great. That's outstanding. All right, so you've made contact with United. You've got a marketable platform, you think, and United gives you the green light. How did you get the word out? Had you already gotten the word out before United gave you the green light?
Well, we had to get the green light from United before we really got very far in anything. But then the programming started. So I think we were a good 9 months of programming after we got the green light from United before we started even distributing CDs, even the beta CDs. So, but that's what we did. We burned CDs. I mentioned I had 5 kids and a wife, and I got all my kids involved in the early stages of the business. They would help with the marketing stuff by printing brochures. And I mean, we were so cheap back then that we were re-inking our printer ourselves. We'd buy all those little bottles and fill them up, and your hands are all. But then we'd stomp CDs and put these CDs out in the domiciles. And when I was still flying for United, we were putting some CDs out, but then of course I got laid off, and so I relied on some other pilots to help me do that. And so I had like 10 pilots that I would ship CDs to, and then they would set them up in their domiciles. And then also I'd send them pins, and they'd stick them in the cockpit. They'd pull the hotel pin out of the cockpit and stick them in one of my eTrip Trader pins, and just that kind of that kind of marketing.
I remember seeing the CDs. I do. That's first time I put it on the first computer. That's where it came from. So I definitely remember that. All right. So you like you said, you had just a handful of pilots. I think you were about what, initially 130 a month or something like that. Does that ring a bell? Was it less than that? How much was it per pilot?
You mean?
Yeah. To the pilot. How much were we paying back?
It was about $10 a month, I think.
I mean, a year. Yeah. About at 10 something bucks a month. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you launch. CDs are out. Approval from United. The program's built. CDs are out. Like every other business, I imagine you found some challenges with the program or challenges working with United. So what was the next? You've overcome the software. You've overcome United. So what's impressive to me, and let me back up for 1 second, is you convinced United on an idea without actually showing them an end result. Correct? What did you have anything to show them on a computer, or was it an idea on paper?
That's a little bit of a mystery why they let me have access, because I think that they must have had a policy that unless there was a particular reason not to, that and as long as the guy was willing to pay to buy that piece to create the secure connection from your computer to United,
right?
That they were okay with whatever you wanted to do as a third party vendor. My suspicion is I figured that if the software didn't sell, I mean, if it didn't provide some kind of value to the pilots,
the market would tell. Yeah, right. The market would decide. Okay. So you've gotten permission, you've got a marketable product, you're marketing it with the family stamping CDs and printing brochures. Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's how I grew this business as well. So now it's launched, now it's up and running. The one thing I will blow a little sunshine your way is I do always remember that anyone that when we were talking about eTrip Trader, if anyone had trouble and reached out to you, it was almost instantaneous that you got back to us. Whether it was a glitch in the system or operational, how to use it. When you started launching this thing, I know it wasn't a ton of pilots at first, but once you got it really going, did you have any operational issues? I don't remember it ever just not working. Did it ever, shut down? I guess, but let me ask you about the platform. It was on our computers, but was it talking to your server somehow? Okay.
Yeah, it was a client server setup where the client existed on your computer, and it was a Microsoft SQLite database, and that database would talk to the the server database and pass information. So like you would pull down the open trips, for example, to your computer by clicking a button, and then we would pull those down, and then we would pass those to the server and then share that information with everybody else. So, and that way when you detected that a new open trip had just come up, we detected it on the server almost instantly, and were able to tell everybody via their notifications that this new trip had just popped up.
Okay.
And believe me, Ellen, your memory is just a little shaded here. I appreciate the kind words, but when we first released that software, it was buggy as hell.
Yeah, I bet. No, look. So let's talk about that. So part of business,
like you said, though, we were absolutely fanatical about customer service,
Yeah.
and to this day, we still are, because I know that without that fanaticism for customer service, we would have never been successful.
Yeah.
And that's our reputation in the industry still. I mean, we have like 24 airline customers now, and you could ask any of them, and they will all tell you the same thing,
Yeah.
that we still maintain that fanatical customer support. And I'm not allowed to say it anymore. We call it first class customer service now. We got into this deal with Rackspace. I don't know if you heard of them, but they're a big company.
Yeah.
And they sent me a cease and desist for, you can't say fanatical support anymore. And I'm like, what? We've been saying that for years. And so I showed them something. They said, look, we've been using it since 2009. And I'm like, oh yeah. Well, here's something that shows we've been using it. We used it back in 2006. And they're like, oh yeah. Well, here's something from 2004. And like, well, here we used it in 2003. And then they're like, we used it in 1999. I'm like,
Okay. Yeah.
okay, you win.
Yeah. Well, they've got a team of lawyers that you probably don't want to mess with anyway. So
yeah, exactly. So we
Yeah.
can't say fanatical support anymore.
Yeah. So first month, you've rolled it out. First month. First technical glitch that comes by, did you have any major meltdowns of the system? Were there just small glitches here and there? I know that I'm asking you to dig back in your memory bank, but how did those first month or two go?
Well, I think with it we did, and sometimes there would be changes with like not necessarily with Unimatic, but the sign-on process or something like that, and just just all of a sudden everything breaks, or because we didn't really have a good testing process, we'd put out a change, and then we fixed something over here, but we broke something over here.
Yeah.
And so we'd have to rapidly re-release. So there was definitely a lot of problems like that, primarily due to the fact that we weren't really following, good software development, a good software development process. It was
Right.
just me and Chris, just me and my son. And but we were so Johnny on the spot when a problem did occur that guys were forgiving, and so we were able to continue to grow our customer base in spite of the fact that maybe we weren't doing all the right things in the software development process.
Sure. Learn as you go. Yeah. Did you do any kind of market testing? Did you call a dozen pilots that you knew and said, hey, if I developed this thing and sold it to you for $10 a month, where you could literally pick up trips in your sleep, trade trips in your sleep, what would that sound like to you? How much market testing did you do, even just conversations before you really got this thing going?
I think I would say that's what it was just, cockpit conversations, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And of course, some guys are like, oh yeah, it's kind of funny. Once the program got going a little bit, I must have heard, 3 or 4 different pilots telling me, oh yeah, I thought of that years ago. I just, never got around to doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did. Sleepless nights proves that I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was only 16-hour days, 7 days a week for months and months. And I mean, literally that's no exaggeration. Because, after 9/11, it was pretty scary times for all of us guys that got furloughed, and
yeah,
and with what are we going to do with our lives? How are we going to feed our families and stuff like that. So it was no kidding. Me and my son were just, banging away programming around the clock. It was tough, some really tough times.
Yeah, I'm sure that added stress to the job. Uh, it's got to be tough on the relationship between a dad and a 15-year-old son. Did not to get too terribly personal, but did that get in the way? Did that ever turn into some real problems? Whether it was,
Well, I mean, it was a lot of pressure on us. He turned 16 shortly after that, but it was a lot of pressure on a 16-year-old kid.
yeah,
And so, yeah, basically, it was tough. But you know what? We have a great relationship now. 4 out of 5 of my kids are working for me in various aspects of the business. The one slacker that's not working for me, he just got his PhD in nuclear physics, and
so not really a slacker.
yeah. So he's
Yeah.
he's doing a fusion, working on fusion energy now. So
All right.
yeah.
They've been talking about that one for decades. Come on, let's get it done. Yeah. All right. So you work through some short-term hurdles, and there's always something, right? It's a business. There's always something. With growth comes growing pains. Outside the family, what was your first hire? Was it prior to 2015, your first full-time W-2 employee? How did you search for that person? How did you decide on that person? Again, this is the guy who, like myself, was making things up as we went along, right? Not a lot of really good mentoring help. So how did that first hire process go?
Well, I think it was all the way back in 2005 or 6, and we hired another programmer, and it was quite fascinating. So we were still working out of our house, and this guy answered an ad that we had, and rode his bike for like 4 or 5 miles across the town, and this was in the middle of summer, really hot. So here he comes to our door. He's just sweating like a pig. So he's like 10 minutes late because he didn't expect it to take this long.
Yeah.
So he shows up 10 minutes late. He's sweating like a pig. He's in shorts and a tank top and flip flops, and he's got every toenail is painted a different color. His fingernails are all painted different. He's got earrings all over, and long hair down to his back. And
So what was the
we
job
hired him.
for? What was the job?
Programmer.
Programmer. Okay, and you
Yeah.
hired him.
They hired him.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did he last? Is he still with you, or is he?
No, but he was really good. He was a great programmer. I don't know. He was with us for maybe 3 years, something like that. And but we just couldn't keep him. We couldn't pay him enough to keep him. My son Chris and I were willing to work for next to nothing. But it's funny, you can't get a lot of other people to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. They don't
Yeah.
care too much about this small little empire you're trying to build.
Yeah,
They care
exactly.
about what goes on in their little world. So, yeah. Did you get any help on how to formally screen the person, background checks, anything like that? How did that? Do you remember? I mean, you described the guy beautifully. Was it just, hey, yeah, come on? Was there any real formal screening process that you were able to take advantage of?
Well, I mean, we obviously asked him some interview questions. I don't even remember what we asked him,
Sure.
but he was really well qualified for the job, and had a great personality, and obviously overcame showing up for his interview like that. But
Yeah.
again, this was before I had any help, any
Yeah.
mentorship or anything like that.
Right.
So we didn't have a good process in place at the time for what is the right way to hire an employee.
Sure.
We were winging it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've hired 2 full-time people, and it's both been through an industry specific recruiter that also comes with testing and background, testing, not only personality testing, but also testing for their ability to do the job that we're doing in the financial services, and then background checks. They take care of all that,
Right.
and I'm
Believe
sure
it or
there's,
not, I think we're up to 51 employees now. So,
Yeah.
we have a little bit more
Yeah.
regimented process
Yeah.
that we go through for hiring now than, you can't just show up on our door with all your toenails painted and
Sure. Right.
expect to land the job. You actually have to go
Yeah.
through a little bit more of a process.
Right. All right. So let's fast forward to 2015. You said you had about 2,000 pilots, all of us paying you for the service, including myself. And then you had a handful of us, including my firm, United Wealth Management. I was doing some advertising on your platform. So you had a good, solid revenue stream. How many employees did you have at the time when you crossed over and left and went, going straight with United versus working with us directly?
I think we were about a dozen
Okay.
at the
And
time.
what was the breakdown there? How many programmers versus other types of back office staff?
Most of them were programmers. I think we had well, typically we're about half programmers, and then the other half are split between customer service and admin management. So we probably were about 5 to 7. I don't remember for sure, but that I'm gonna guess we were in that range.
Okay. And it's obvious why you had to grow the customer service side because you were growing your customer base. As you had more and more users on the platform, did it involve that many more programmers just to keep the thing going? Or were you developing out new business strategies software wise?
We had already started the SchedFlex product had already begun. That actually started in 2009
Okay.
as a automated shift trading platform for all the rampers and customer service agents at United. And because we won a contract with United after the airport ops guys saw what we were doing with the pilots, they're like, we need we're still doing shift trading on writing it down on cards and sticking it on a board and stuff. And so we created an automated shift trading platform for them called SchedFlex. And that ended up transitioning to doing much more than trading, and it transitioned more to the flight side, and so also became a trip trading platform, but doing the full crew schedule management, all of the tracking of legalities and flight times. And then we started doing all the flight tracking also.
Mm-hmm.
So that product, SchedFlex, our first customer that was not shift trading, it was more of the flight management part, started in 2010 with ConocoPhillips up in Alaska. They're a Part 125 operator. And then a couple of years later, we added our first 121 airline, Penn Air up in Alaska, and then Raven, and by the time United came to us with the opportunity to provide crew companion for all the pilots, I think we probably had I don't know, three or four or five customers that were on that SchedFlex product
right,
as well.
sure.
So part of the team was SchedFlex. But when we did get this deal for United, we had to do a lot more work on it. So it's kind of like the whole team came over here and focused on the crew companion code for a while.
So you already had that, United, you already had a big foot in the door with United before 2015, when you then take the old eTrip Trader system and turn it into a United provided system. How difficult was that transition? How you said your programmers pretty much shifted away from your other customers that were on SchedFlex still, and to really work on building out this interface that we have today. Did it require you hire more programmers? That was a pretty big undertaking.
It was really, really tough, Alan. We got word of it in like March, I think, of 2014 that so the union reached out to me and said, this may be happening. And with that in mind, we stopped doing annual subscriptions.
And that's when you
because
fired me as an advertiser, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
we had to stop all that stuff, and
Right.
and we couldn't keep doing annual subscriptions because we knew we were going to have to pay back all this money when
Yeah.
United took over. If pilots had paid a year, well, we're going to have to refund them 6 months or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And so it was going to be devastating financially to have to do. I think we were looking at like $250,000 in subscription rebates that we were going to have to give if we didn't do
Right.
something.
Right.
So we stopped the annuals and went to just like monthlies or quarterlies or something like that. But our revenue took a nosedive. All the while, we had to maintain our staff to be able to program what we needed done, but the negotiations ended up dragging on way
Yeah.
longer than we thought. We thought it'd be like a couple months, but no, it was. We didn't have a deal with United until October.
Mhm.
And then most of the revenue didn't actually come in until the first of the following year. So it was pretty devastating. That was the only year in our company's history that we did not grow.
Yeah.
We shrunk considerably that year. So it was really tough time when everyone was taking pay cuts, and we did all
Right.
we could to survive.
Right.
Winning the deal.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of skipped over along the way, because you mentioned it earlier, talking to investors. At what point did you have to do that with your business? You start in 2002-3 time frame. When are you talking to investors to scale to the next level?
It could be any time for depending on the scope of the business, but we reached out originally in like 2006 or 7 when we needed to transition from the old Trip Trader platform that was starting to show its age, and we needed to transition, and we ended up creating Crew Companion. Started out as a downloaded software also, and then eventually transitioned into a web-based platform. But we needed money to fund that redesign of the product. So we tried to raise some capital, and we weren't very successful. It's difficult to raise money from angel investors or venture capital firms or stuff when you try to tell them what you do, and you're going to explain trip trading,
Yeah.
and you have to start by explaining what a trip is.
Right.
I mean, it's a difficult thing to get across to an investor that's used to buying Kentucky Fried Chickens or something. So it was always difficult to raise money.
Yeah, there are a lot of private equity firms, venture capital firms that specialize in certain industries. Like I'm involved in a biotech here in town, and they've worked recently with a biotech central venture capital group on the precursor of going public. So, where with you, certainly not. There's probably not one firm out there that could really focus on your sector, your little corner of the world.
Yeah, we were just too nichey.
Yeah. But where did you go? What was your resource? Where did you first go to say, okay, who do I talk to try and raise some capital? Were you looking for debt, or were you looking for equity, or anything you could get at that point?
Yeah, debt wasn't really an option for us, so we were looking for equity. And we reached out to there's angel alliances, in our area. Not much. Boise is not very active area. There's some parts of the country that you can't swing a dead cat and not hit an angel investor, but that's not the case in this area. So we ended up not being very successful in raising capital. We just kept bootstrapping it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that come up again, needing capital? And if so, did you go after it? Were you able to get any financing? How did that work later?
We tried again, I think in 2011, and again, weren't really successful. But we eventually got to the point where they, trying to raise equity wasn't as important, because we had established enough of a track record that we were able to get bank loans. And in spite of the fact that we didn't have any collateral or anything like that, we were able to get SBA-backed
Right.
loans for our, to help fuel our growth.
Sure.
And in spite of the fact that we had no equity to put up.
Yeah, but you had a decade of cash flow and a growing business model. So, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, good. All right. So it sounds to me like, other than starting this thing and being furloughed trying to feed 5 kids, the second most difficult time, it sounds like, was the transition away from the subscriber-based platform to working directly with United. Would that be a true statement?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that would be true. Probably the third would be when I don't know if you recall back in 2008 when the pilot union pulled out of the trip trade agreement with United.
I do.
That was pretty devastating to us, obviously. That year we did end up growing, our gross income, but not until the 365th day of the year.
Wow.
we just barely eked out, so the unit actually just started to head out on a family vacation, like a cruise up to Alaska, and so it was kind of a somber cruise. Here we are looking at our fate of okay, well, it's a trip trade company, and now there's no more trip trading. But there was one little saving grace there, and they allowed pilot to pilot trades to continue. And we happen to have a feature that really helped guys do pilot to pilot trades. So we dove in head first on that, and marketed it strong, and of course our revenue dropped off significantly without open trip trading and the other types of trip trading. But still, with just that pilot to pilot, we were able to eke out and survive until the union and company came back together and reinstated the trip trade letter.
Sure. Yeah, no, now that you bring that up, I do remember that. All right. So you get through 15, and so the last 5 years, 6 years since you've brought on United, are you still dealing with individual subscriptions anymore, or are you strictly working with companies?
We do still. So a part of the deal with United was that we were permitted to offer premium features to pilots. So basically, anything that United didn't feel necessary to pay for, we can offer those premium features to pilots on a subscription basis. And so we still do that. We don't make a hell of a lot of money on that, quite frankly, but it is nice to maintain that connection to the pilots, and so we're very happy, proud to still be able to do that.
Is United the only place you're doing that? Still direct subscriptions with pilots or with individuals? Okay. So your business now, I assume, is heavy with programmers and light with customer service compared to, say, 2014 before the transition made.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are today in God Almighty, with 2020 behind us. I guess it's probably a good thing that you don't have individual subscriptions for the most part last year, because I would assume that all of us that did 6 months of surplus reduction lines like I did would probably call you guys and go, hey, I don't need your subscription. I would imagine that would have taken a toll. Business wise, there are a lot of industries that did well last year. A lot of them, like the airlines, restaurants, so forth, have gotten clobbered. How are things with you last year? Did you have growth from a new business development standpoint? Did you have stagnant growth? How did things look, and why? How has COVID affected ETT Aviation?
Well, first of all, it did. way the business model works with United is we get paid only based on the number of pilots that use our software in any given quarter. So if a pilot doesn't use Crew Companion, we don't get paid. We don't get paid.
Okay.
For that pilot.
So I mean, click on and open it, or actually engage in trades.
There's certain pages that they have to visit. I don't recall which pages. So essentially, they got to pull their calendar or Trip Trade or something. I don't recall exactly, but I think in general, if a pilot is using Crew Companion for managing their schedule day to day, we're going to get paid for them. But some don't. Most do. I think we're probably 95% of the pilots use Crew Companion, but still, when after COVID devastated the ranks, a lot of guys took early outs and that kind of thing. So we have definitely seen a big drop this year from our revenue from United. But we also saw we had a lot of other airline customers that took it in the shorts. One of them was ExpressJet. We landed ExpressJet as a customer. Of course, that's a United Express carrier.
Mm-hmm.
In January of last year, and we're really excited about that. We're doing trip trading for them. We were going to provide the SchedFlex platform for trip trading, but unfortunately, ExpressJet bit the dust when
right.
United chose to shutter that operation due to COVID.
Right.
So we had it was an interesting year last year. We added 9 new airlines last year, but we lost 5.
Yeah.
Due to COVID. So we lost 3 right off the bat in April up in Alaska. They all were in the same airline group. They all declared bankruptcy, and we lost them. Except we lost ExpressJet and lost another one later. But again, we picked up 9 because our software has a pretty broad offering and appeals to cargo operators and charter operators, and as well as passenger carrying operators. So, knock on wood, we were able to still, put forward a pretty significant growth last year in spite of COVID.
How hard is it to tailor the platform for all these different airlines?
It's a constant effort. Every airline is different. Like one of the things that we do is crew pay, and crew pay is pretty complex.
Mm-hmm.
And then when crew pay at United is pretty complex,
sure,
right? But shockingly, it's trivial compared to some of the airlines that we provide crew pay for.
Wow,
it's insane how many different ways airlines can dream up to pay their pilots.
Yeah.
And so there's always a lot of different customization. One of the we just completed a rollout of a qualification training management system where we deliver all of the training. So like the sim instructor grading the sim and having that transition to the curriculum for initial qual or whatever it is that you're doing, and then of course we track all of the currencies after that, and so we spent a lot of time rolling that product out for Jazz Airlines, as well as a new product for a preferential bidding system.
Yeah.
So we just created a whole new PBS for Jazz also. That's quite frankly, I think it's the best in the business. So we're pretty excited.
I for one would love to see it. I hate our PBS system. I don't mind PBS bidding because I stay senior, but I actually like it. But I'd love to see another system. Last topic here is your plan to kind of keep what you're doing now, work with individual companies, and the big question is, does Tom have an exit plan?
Well, you sound like my board of directors.
I am my board of directors, myself and my wife, when it comes to when's Alan going to exit, because I've been doing 2 jobs parallel for almost 20 years now. So it weighs on it. So going forward, next couple of years, much of the same, just continued great service for companies to serve pilots and search for more, or anything, any other pivots that you might think about doing? And then again, exit, big picture.
Well, we just acquired another company, and we acquired a company in January 2019 that does maintenance and inventory management and accounting and stuff. And then in December, just a couple months ago, we acquired another company that does flight planning and dispatching. And we're in the process of weaving those products into our suite, our offering. So we've darn it. Sorry, I didn't turn that phone off earlier.
That's all right.
We've reached the point where we are able to pretty much offer an airline everything they need to run their entire operation, with the exception of the passenger management stuff. We don't do anything with that, but we do all of the everything else that an airline needs to run its operation. Our plan is to continue to expand that suite and perfect it, and quite frankly, become the 800-pound gorilla in the industry.
All right, without getting in Tom's playbook, how much longer do you want to do this? How interested are your kids? I mean, that's one thing I think about all the time. My kids are young; they're 11 and 15. Are they going to have interest in this? What does that look like for you right now, or what are you thinking?
Like I said, you sound like my board of directors, because they're always telling me that it's time to be thinking about an exit down the road. I'm like, I don't want to. I love doing what I'm doing. I don't see myself exiting for another 5 to 10 years at least. I don't feel like there are very many people in the industry that have enough, as much of a breadth of understanding of what it takes from a software perspective to run a large airline.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm perfectly positioned to to run a company like this, and I love doing it. So I just don't see myself exiting in any time in the near future.
Sure. All right. Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. So, well, Tom, hey, thanks for, it's great to see you. I hadn't talked to you in a long time, but I appreciate you spending some time with me. And man, I learned a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Alan. Yeah, this has been great.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, man. Well, look, best of luck to you. And hey, thanks again from all of us for doing the work you do, because it does seriously make our life better.
That's wonderful.
All right. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.